7:35 on this rainy Tuesday morning. I'm very proud to introduce our Senator, Senator Tom Cotton. And Senator, good morning and welcome.
Morning, Dale. Great to be on with you.
Well, I tell you what, it's quite an honor to have. It's quite an honor to be able to say that Tom Cotton's my senator because you've got a backbone. I think you're in touch with the constituents here in Arkansas. And Dr. Charles Osgood he says, "Can I think I could ask him a question?"
Yeah. My question is just, I know you are new and you are really fighting. You're the only one I've seen that's been fighting. And my question is, are the people in Washington really that out of touch that they don't understand how mad we are?
Well, Charles, unfortunately, a lot of them are, especially on the Democratic side. Barack Obama continues to act as if we didn't just have a historic election last year, in which his party was massively repudiated. In fact, if you look over the tenure of his administration, Republicans are, in many ways, at historical high water marks. We've got more congressmen than we've had in 90 years, the second most senators that we've had in 100 years. We've got 32 out of 50 governors, 68 out of 99 state legislative bodies, and maybe most telling, Barack Obama has seen over 925 state legislative seats go from Democratic held in 2009 to Republican held now.
Oh, yeah.
Yet he just continues to ignore the elections results and try to drive forward with a hardcore left-wing agenda of higher taxes, more regulations, and appeasement and concessions abroad.
Oh, yeah.
Well, some of your people sent in some questions, but our internet is down this morning, so I know one of those was a reform on Social Security disability. Yeah,
Dale, this is a very important project that we need to take up sooner rather than later. The disability program runs out of money next year, so all beneficiaries are looking at 20% across-the-board cut. And the last thing I want to see is someone who's suffering from ALS, who's had a catastrophic car accident or other kind of seriously debilitating injury or illness, see a 20% across-the-board cut to the main source of their livelihood. At the same time, we should make sure that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars and that people who can work are going back to work eventually.
Sure.
Just to give you one example, in the 1980s, about 6% of all disability recipients went back to work. Today, it's less than 0.5%. If my legislation that would separate out beneficiaries by seriously and permanently disabled into less seriously injured and disabled and get those people the kind of rehabilitative training they need, help them get back to work, put timelines on their enrollment in the program, had been in effect for the last 15 years, and just 1% more people had gone back to work, just 1% more, not all the way back up to where it was in the 80s, so it's only got up to 1.5%, taxpayers would have saved $100 billion in that 15-year period, and the program wouldn't be running out of money it is today. So I think it's urgent that we protect the most vulnerable Arkansans who rely on a program like disability and who have paid into it, that we help those people who can work get back to work so they can provide for their families and be contributing vital parts of their community, and that we protect taxpayer dollars.
True. And the other, Senator, I apologize, but my internet is still down, and Jancy, excuse me, has sent the talking points in here that you need to cover. I'm going to rely on what you need to talk about to the constituents here in Arkansas.
Well, one very important piece of legislation on which we'll vote today is the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act. I helped write this legislation in the Intelligence Committee earlier this year, and today will be the final vote on passage in the Senate. We've all seen the headlines that seem to grow each month about serious breaches of cybersecurity, whether it's at Sony Pictures last fall or retailers like Target. Just recently, there were allegations that the CIA director's email from the time before he was working in the administration was hacked by a teenage kid. It's essential that private companies and individuals be comfortable sharing information with the federal government so they can get the kind of assistance they need. Remember, when someone robs a bank at gunpoint, we don't tell them they better track down the robber. When terrorists flew aircraft into the World Trade Center, we didn't tell the owner that he needed to go track down the terrorists.
Right.
These are core law enforcement and military responsibilities of the federal government, and we need to give companies the kind of assurances that they require so they can cooperate with law enforcement. So this bill would encourage the kind of direct cooperation between private companies who have been victims of cyber attacks or hacks to cooperate with the federal government without having to worry about legal liability and trial lawyers hounding them and so forth.
Okay, I've got a dumb question for you, Senator. What if when Hillary Clinton had that private server in her home, had she been hacked, and there's still the possibility that she could have been, or some security breach in that. Is this a similarity that you're talking about here? Could that have happened?
Well, I think one has to assume that a private, unsecured server in the home of a senior government official was hacked, at least by the Russians and the Chinese, if not by cyber criminals. In fact, Barack Obama's own former deputy director of the CIA has said he assumes as much. That's why she shouldn't have done it to begin with. This bill, though, focuses more on the companies on which we all depend, that have a lot of our personal data, that have a lot of financial data. Companies like Walmart when you shop online, or your local bank, or the electricity company that has all of your billing information. It also has custody of some of our critical infrastructure. When they see any kind of cyber activity, which may not be a full-fledged hack, it may be the equivalent, to put it in real-world terms, of seeing someone casing the premises, doing a recon run. Yeah. They can go cooperate directly with the federal government without fear that they're going to face a lawsuit from people for revealing what might otherwise be protected information. In the exact same way that when a bank is robbed by, a masked gunman, then the bank can't be held liable for telling the police what happened in the bank.
Does it also encompass aspects of the Affordable Care Act too?
No, Charles, not specifically.
Okay.
It would apply to, say, health insurance companies or hospitals.
That's what I really meant.
If they are victims of an attack, and I think it's important to remember all of these companies are victims as well.
Yeah.
Now we are, as the American people, are ultimately the victims because it's oftentimes our information. But these companies are victims as well. And as long as they've upheld a reasonable standard of care based on the best available technology, we need to encourage them to cooperate with law enforcement, just in the same way we encourage someone whose store has been robbed in the real world sense.
Mm-hmm.
Senator, I can't help but ask this question. I know this is not on the format that Jancy has sent in, but there's a lot of concerns about how some of the stuff with Hillary Clinton, and you're more in tune with this than we are out here in what we call flyover country, but what I would consider criminal acts, how is it just like water on a duck's back when it comes down to Hillary Clinton? I mean, there's 4 dead Americans in Benghazi. If I'm not mistaken, the British had pulled out like 2 weeks before that, and it's still... just to see the expression on her face with her chin resting in the palm of her hand like, oh, boy, here we go again. I'm going to say the same. The people are tired of this, but yet she's got supporters that want to put her in the White House, and this is what I don't understand.
I don't get it.
Well, Dale, the media obviously supports Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The media is monolithically Democratic. So last week they wanted to focus on style points and poise and the kind of very transient political analysis.
Is the press coaching her?
Probably.
No, she probably would be doing a better job if they were.
Trey Gowdy's really putting it to her, though. I like that.
But in the end, though, no one remembers today, much less are they going to remember a year from now, what Hillary looked like, or how she studiously rolled her eyes at questions, or how inartful the Republicans appeared to be. What people are going to remember is on the night of the Benghazi attacks, she told her daughter that this is an al-Qaeda-style terrorist attack. The very next day, she lied to the American people, saying that it was the result of a video. Mm-hmm. And then 2 days later, standing at Andrews Air Force Base with the caskets of 4 dead Americans, she looked in the eyes of their parents and said, this is the result of a video.
That's horrible.
We cannot elect someone as commander-in-chief who would be so cavalier with the truth in regards of matters of life and death in a war zone.
Now, this is a comedic relief right here. Did you see that Yoko Ono came out and said she had an affair with Hillary Clinton? I figured you could use a chuckle, Senator.
That's awesome.
What else do you have for us today, sir?
Well, that's pretty much what's on our agenda right now in the short term. There's been reports of a emerging budget deal, but the text isn't finalized. I, for one, don't think that we should be adding more to our debt at a time when our military desperately needs additional funding to face all the threats that we confront around the world. Yet it didn't get any kind of new funding 6 years ago when every other domestic agency, like the EPA and the IRS, got huge amounts of money in the stimulus. And I'm concerned that right now we're just throwing money at problems because the Democrats have been so stubborn and refused to fund our military at the appropriate levels. And Barack Obama even last week vetoed, for the first time in 53 years, the annual Defense Authorization Act, not over specific objection to a particular provision, but to just overall levels of funding for our troops when all of his domestic priorities aren't getting funded as well. I just don't think that's. I think that wrongly says that any dollar of federal spending is the same, no matter what it goes to, when I would submit, and I think most Arkansans would agree, that the most important thing our federal government does, the first thing it has to do, is to protect America and to defend our interests around the world.
Was there any truth to the rumor that the president had ordered the destruction of any aircraft over Israeli and Syrian airspace that might interfere with Iranian jets? Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't heard anything along those lines, Dale. And the main thing the president seems to want to do in Syria is nothing. So that would be a big break from his policy of inaction for 4.5 years, which has caused so much instability in the region and threatened our interest in the region, threatened many of our allies in the region, but also is increasingly creating threats to our homeland because it's giving the Islamic State the safe haven it needs to try to plot and try to launch attacks right here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, Senator, it looks like we've exhausted our time that we've requested. Any final remarks for the constituents here in North Central Arkansas?
No, I just wanted to say once again, it's always a pleasure to be on with you, and it's a true honor to be able to serve my fellow Arkansans in the United States Senate. If we can ever be of assistance to anyone in any way, whether it's a trip to Washington, D.C., or help the local federal agency there locally, just give our office a call or go to our website. It's probably the best one-stop shop, our website at cotton.senate.gov.
And we'll take just a quick minute. Don't know if we're going to have time to talk between now and the end of the year. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to you, Senator, you and your family.
Thank you. Same to all of you.
Thanks, Senator. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That's